Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Refine Life podcast. Now, okay, I see. I can see, Jared,
Clearly now.
your head is like barely in the frame.
Huh?
Yeah. I got to make sure we can see your cool outfits. Jared always has he's always
It's
hip.
the same outfit as the last episode.
He's too
and the
legit.
Next episode.
Too legit to quit. Hey.
We're going to have to
too
go
legit.
shopping with Jared one day.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and make this introduction. Get us going.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Refine Life podcast. I'm Bigg Vinny. That's Jared Blake and Jim Suter.
Hey.
But today we have a special guest. I met this guy all the way down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
On
As we were-
farmersonly.com.
On Farmers Only. You don't have to be lonely with farmersonly.com. No,
Is that their theme song?
that is their theme song. I wrote that.
Oh.
You didn't know I wrote that? I didn't.
How'd you know I grew up?
Where's
on
our
farm?
50%?
But I met Brian Dem when we both made the semifinals for the Great American Speak Off, and we did a 2-day workshop together there, and we just hit it off, just right off the bat. We ended up going and having dinner together, maybe the first night. They
Yeah,
took me to a
it
Thai
was.
place, which, just so you know, Thai food is spicy. So make,
Yeah.
make sure you
Love
get it
it.
not spicy. But we just immediately became friends. I love the guy, and he added me to his email chain. And every day I get these positive messages from him that are always based in God, which I think is the number one thing that we really connected on, is just that we both love Jesus. And I think it's incredible that this guy does that for people, but he also helps people grow their businesses. He helps change their lives, helps get stuff in order. And I want to better understand what you do, but I know it's things that our listeners need to hear about, and that's the whole point of being the Refined Life. Is we want to find ways to better ourselves, better our businesses, better our relationships with God, better our relationships with our wife and kids. And man, just speaking with you, you brought such a light anytime that you were around, and the way you made people feel. So I wanted to bring that into our room, into our podcast, and I'm glad that you were able to jump on with us today. So if you don't mind, can you give us your 2-minute, 3-minute spiel of who is Brian Gault and what makes you tick?
Yeah, definitely. Great. And Vinny, thanks so much for the warm welcome and introduction. Jared, Jeff, looking forward to hanging out with you guys tonight as well. And yeah, backstory. Gosh, where do I start? I think probably the best place to start is just kind of my history and backstory in corporate America. I know everybody hears it said that there's this thing called the American dream. And I got to tell you something about it. I thought I was living it like day in and day out. Mm-hmm. Like if you would have looked at me from the outside, I looked like, all the rewards and accomplishments and promotions and beautiful wife, 2.3 kids, great cars, nice house. And just everything was going great. I'd like preach for pastor when he was away on vacation on a Sunday morning, and I thought I was living this American dream, but here's the thing. I found myself, about 6, 7, 8 years ago now, I was down. I'll never forget this moment, Vinny. I was down at a hotel in Dallas, Texas, and I was on a week-long business trip Tuesday to Tuesday, and I was reading this book called Leading on Empty by Wayne Cordero. It was all about burnout. And I just broke down, man. I just literally started legit crying. And I just remember thinking to myself, something has got to change. I was exhausted from a week of back-to-back meetings, feeling bound by my phone and my calendar, always pressured to say yes to everyone and everything. Just feeling like I was always being pulled in a million different directions. Never had enough time and energy for myself, let alone really how I wanted to be there and show up for my family and my wife and my 2.3 daughters. And I just remember thinking, again, hey, something's got to change. And, within this American dream, what I realized is that, and unfortunately it was a little too late, is I realized I was living this nightmare of burnout. And I know that many people can relate. I mean, the stats are painfully obvious and clear just in terms of how many people suffer from burnout. But this was a serious big deal. I was adrenal fatigue stage 3, and stage 4 is death. So I had to step back and take a 2.5-month leave of absence because I couldn't physically or mentally work. And let me tell you, man, that was just beyond humbling and sobering. So, now 5.5+ years later, since that one particular event, people ask me all the time, Brian, how'd you do it, man? How'd you beat burnout? And, you know, there's a lot of practical proven principles that I live like day in and day out. For me, I'm 1,000% more fulfilled and joyful
Yeah.
now than I ever was before. And I'm so grateful and thankful for that. But the big thing that I'm all about now is just helping people, to your point, Vinny, really just kind of take inventory and say, hey, are you really living your priorities? You know, what you say your priorities are you really doing that? And for a lot of people, it all starts with giving them permission to say no, and then giving themselves permission to say no.
Yeah.
And
No, I think that's awesome, and we've actually talked about the power of the word no on this podcast. Actually, on our episode, I don't know which one I air when, but we had talked about just times that we've had to say no, and sometimes you feel like that instant no takes money out of your pocket right then, but it might add joy, or it might add, you know, people's respect back to you. A lot of times when you tell somebody no, and they don't feel like you're so hungry for them, and to make stuff happen, is what we talked about was. They end up doing more business with you, and understanding that you have to have this barrier of, this is my time, this is my family, this is my time with God, this is my time on vacation, and you have to have those boundaries that just, you know, keep people from thinking they can run all over you all the time. So in your daily job back then, when you were so stressed out and you were making this money and you were doing great, which is awesome, and we all strive, we all want to make as much money as we can, but if it's at the cost of truly living, there's a difference between making a living and making a life. And so it's something that we've kind of all heard, but what was your job and what was your kind of daily routine during that? Now, obviously I know you were taking meetings and stuff, but what was you doing in that job?
I was just leading a team, leading a really big team that was just growing and booming exponentially. I mean, our volumes were just exponentially growing year over year. I'm in the IT cyberspace and industry, and have been for the last couple decades. So, I mean, it's, you know, the hackers are always a couple steps ahead of other people, you know, the good folks, right, who are trying to defend and protect and everything. And so our customers are just, you know, nonstop needs, lots of back-to-back meetings, lots of travel. And I wasn't very good. And you know, candidly, I kind of sucked at leading and delegating. You know, I thought I was good at the time. Certain members of my team loved me. But yeah, in hindsight, looking back, I was not very good at saying no. I was a yes person, right? I've been a people pleaser. I know, Vinny, you and I talked about that. I mean, it's good to serve, right? It's good to have a big heart, but you know, if you do the simple math, you can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't give what you don't have. But I was kind of deaf to that, because I was just climbing that ladder and saying yes to everyone and everything.
Yeah, and Jeff, you can kind of speak to it. He always talks about FOMO, so you want to speak on that?
Yeah, fear of missing out.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people make, in my opinion, a lot of people make bad decisions not only for their life but their family's life, just based on the fear of missing out. Right? It's a real problem. Yeah. And you said something a minute ago that struck a chord with me. You said adrenal fatigue. And I've always kind of attributed that to too much caffeine, too much coffee, too much energy drink, stuff like that. What led you to even realize you had adrenal fatigue?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jeff. A couple different things. So we're up here in the Northeast. I live in what I call the East Coast, California. And we're about an hour away from the ocean, hour and a half away from the mountains, hour away from Boston, just, you know, north of Boston, in southern New Hampshire. Apologies for that annoying phone alarm. I don't know if y'all heard that in the background there.
Did not.
But I took my family out to Old Orchard Beach for a long getaway weekend on Labor Day. And this was 2018, so September 2018. And, you know, my girls and I, we had a blast. Robin and I, we've been, you know, happily married for a couple decades now, celebrating our 25th this summer. And
heck yeah.
Just life was good, you know, surfing with my youngest daughter and riding the amusement park rides at Old Orchard Beach. And a funny thing happened to where a couple days after I got back, and I'm just going into the office again every day, you know, hitting it hard again, so to speak. I just remember being really, really, really exhausted and tired. And a couple weeks later, I was like grinding to a halt. And I just literally walked into my doctor's office. And this is above and beyond all of the other symptoms, like not only just extreme fatigue and exhaustion, but being really grouchy and super irritable. And I like to think of myself as a pretty patient person with 3 daughters. You know,
I
they
can't even
definitely taught
imagine
me a
you
lot of
being
patience over
irritable.
the
You're
years.
such a nice guy. I can't even imagine you being irritable.
Oh yeah. We've all got our flesh. We've all got those moments. But I mean, also like just super sensitive to light, to noise, apathetic. Like I don't care, and that's not me at all, right? Like I'm a really passionate person. But then I just walked into my doctor's office, Jeff, and she looked at me, and she's been our family doctor for a good couple decades now, and she knows me pretty well, and she's experienced adrenal fatigue herself. She goes, Brian, you can't go back to work. And I knew she was right, and I was scared. I was so scared in that moment, but I knew she was right. I was like, what do you mean I can't go back to work? I got a high-performing team. It's like, Brian, I'll give you a couple of days to wrap up everything, and you are out. And, so it was just honestly, Jeff, like a big brick wall to where I just couldn't function physically or mentally. In fact, it got so bad when I was out on my leave of absence. I was trying to rest. Like, it's funny, you're trying to rest as much as you can between 5 or 10 doctor's appointments every week. But I'll never forget my lowest moment. At least it felt like my lowest moment. Oh, severe depression too. That was a huge, massive side effect of the adrenal fatigue. But one particular morning, Jeff, I was in the kitchen with Robin just doing some juicing because my diet radically changed overnight because it needed to. Like I walked into church one morning and I had a friend, her name was Stacy, and thank God she didn't tell me this till months after the fact. But she told me, you know, well after I was on my way to recovery, she goes, Brian, you walked in that morning, man, you look gray. You look really, really, really sick. Like you look like you were on your way to dying. And so back to juicing, you know, my diet changed radically overnight. And so you know how like when you core an apple, you need that upper body strength, you just push like straight down with your shoulders. I probably cored 2 or 3, maybe 4 apples, and I was wiped out. I was done. I had to go lay down for a couple-hour nap. It was pretty bad.
Wow.
Yeah. I think Jared, you know, you getting to meet my crew here tonight, but Jared was actually the one that taught me about the power of the word no, and helped me implement that into things and all that. But Jared, I'd like for you to speak a little bit on what he just said, because I know you had some great things. You were like, I've told you that, I told you that. So, just kind of get your opinion on it.
Well, I mean, there's just so much that he said in there, and it's right up the same alley that all of us have been talking for a while now, probably ever since we started this podcast, of, realizing that, yeah, obviously you want to thrive and you want to make things happen, but at what cost?
Right.
And what is your actual life looking like, and I don't know. I think that you kind of caught me off guard, Vinny. I'm not usually caught that way. I've just enjoyed listening to him. I think you're expressing everything that we've been talking about. It's just nice to hear someone else saying it,
Well, I think one of the things that hit me just as he was talking is just, I think a lot of times, especially as men and as, men that are go-getters and that people that want to strive and thrive in life, you almost get this feeling like I'm not allowed to take a break. I'm not allowed to feel, depressed or feel down. It's like, and you want to be the hero and you want to be the champion and you want to be all these things for everybody. And that's kind of the reason you never say no. But then in turn, you end up hurting, people that you didn't intend to hurt, because you do fatigue out and you do get grumpy and you do get certain ways. And I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky person. I mean, I'm pretty much always me. But even me at times, whenever it's like, okay, I got to be up at 4:00 in the morning to go train this client. And then I got to be over here for, X, Y, and Z. Then I got to make these phone calls. Then I got this conference call over here. Then I got to go do the podcast. Then I got to go downtown and play a show. Then and so you definitely hit those moments that you're just like, you're unavailable mentally to the people that you need to be the most mentally there for. And that's your kids and your wife and your
right.
your 0.3 daughter, which is it's a puppy, I'm guessing, right?
No, I've actually got 3 girls.
Oh, you just like to say it like that.
Yeah.
She's just shorter than the rest.
one of the things
it's that American dream thing.
Yeah.
White house, big fence, nice cars, smoking out wide, 2.3 kids.
Yeah.
One of the things that he hit on was, I just actually did it this morning, was, we talk a lot about vision boards and those sort of things in here. And I guess I had my vision board on my my dresser, And my wife's an interior designer, and apparently she didn't think that a vision board belonged there. And I found it in my closet this morning, and I'd seen it there a few mornings, and I looked down and realized that like every day I'd been looking at that. And so I went and put it in my music room because she doesn't get to tell me where I put things in the music room. So I put it in there because I need to see it, because it's so important, because I will replace all the things that I think are important in my life with whatever happens to be on my plate right now.
Yeah.
And, and part of the conversation that we were having earlier is realizing that God has given me a lot of the things that I've asked for. And I'm the one getting in the way of receiving those blessings, because I'm putting something else in there. As soon as I get there, okay, we got that. Now let's move on to this. Now let's move on to this. And I'm not necessarily enjoying my life. And once again, I mean, there's only so much. I don't know people who achieve an incredibly high level of worldly success. I don't know if they're happy or not, but I'm realizing that for me, there may be a cap out of what I can make financially and still enjoy my life.
Yeah.
There may be a spot where I can either pursue money or I can pursue the life in front of me.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I've often, we've talked about that. Like, at what point do you feel like, man, I got enough? I don't want to have the stress of how do I put together another deal and how do I put together another thing? Like, we met a lot of people down there that are, pushing the billionaire line, but they're hitting, what was it, at 9 figures, I think was 2 or 3 of the guys stood up at 9 figures. And you're sitting there like, I mean, what are you still working for? Like, why are you still putting yourself in those stressful situations and putting yourself there? And the best answer I've ever heard to that is, I asked a guy back when Clubhouse was a big thing, and he had told me, he's like, well, he goes, because it's not really about me anymore, but it's about knowing that, if I run this company the right way, like I have been, it provides all these jobs and makes all these people this kind of money. And then on top of that, now I have the money and power to invest in other people's businesses and put stuff into other people. And which I get all that. I think that's all honorable and stuff. But I do think, like, especially if your kids were young, like my kids are young, so if somebody told me like, hey man, you're going to make $250,000 a year and your stress is going to be low, or you can make $1 million a year and your stress is going to be through the roof and you're never going to have any time, I'd be like, I think I'll take that $250,000 and time with my kids, and time with my wife.
All the
And like I said, I haven't been presented with that. Nobody's given me that option just yet. But I'm just saying, I just think that it's an important thing. So now you've traded, you kind of traded this career where you were in IT and you were dealing with a million problems and doing all this kind of stuff. What is your daily routine like now? Or do you sign on individual clients? Do you take people on and help them manage their time and their assets and their priorities? What is it that you do now?
Yeah, so I'm still in that same 9 to 5, but I did willingly give up my team. And it's funny how God works, because the way I think and lead and my daily habits, my life, everything now is just totally, completely different than before. And I wasn't looking for all of that to be restored, but it has been, to where now I've got a great team and the work is just as intense. But the thing that I had to realize, y'all, was I had to take a hard look inside, because it was really easy for me to blame the exponential business growth in my company. And I had to say, you know what, Brian, you screwed up. This is on you, buddy. And so I had to change the way I thought and led and believed and delegated. And so short answer to your question is I still do that, but now I'm a certified high performance coach. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Brendan Burchard, according to Forbes.com.
Yeah.
Brendan's world's #1 high performance coach. Tremendous man, super outgoing, wicked friendly, charismatic, loves God, loves people. And I got connected with him and became a certified high performance coach. I had the privilege and honor of being trained and certified by him personally in the High Performance Institute out in San Diego, California, about 5 years ago. And so now, ever since then, man, I've just been working with groups. I coach group and I coach one-on-one, and I speak, podcasts, webinars, stages, and just really helping people to reclaim their time and energy. And the part that I love about being a certified high performance coach, if you'll allow me to just geek out for a minute here, is that he basically, in his role as Brendan, that is, in his role as founder and leader of High Performance Institute, he partnered together with the University of Pennsylvania's Masters of Applied Positive Psychology program, MAP. And they did the world's largest ever study done of high performance. And it's still ongoing today. And they basically defined 6 high performance habits that, regardless of any demographic, they will move the needle and cause you to be and enjoy a life of high performance, which I love how they even define it. They define it as the top 5 to 10% of any given field or endeavor with positive impact to your health and your relationships. And I love that part, right? Because like me and like some of the others, right, we climb that ladder, but we screw up and our health and our relationships suffer. And then they even go on to describe the feeling, hey, how does high performance feel? It feels fulfilling. It feels joyful. It feels confident. It feels present. And so now, not only myself, day in and day out, and I am the most joyful person I know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I got my moments. In fact, this week's been a little bit of a funky one, but I'm the most joyful person I know. So I know these habits work, and I'm literally just helping my clients implement these high performance habits: courage, necessity, influence, clarity, energy, and productivity. Those are the 6 high performance habits. And the thing that I love about those, and I know I know we're all believers here, those are all right out of Scripture. They're right
Absolutely.
out of the Bible, right? Without a vision, my people perish. Be strong and of good courage, for I am with you. If I'm for you and with you, then who can be against you? And so it's just helping my clients live out those habits on a day-to-day basis.
So I'm assuming then that this also gives you a great time and way to share your testimony, because you're going about this and applying this in very normal, worldly ways. Hey, this is going to help you. This is better for you. But like you said, all of this comes straight out of the Bible as well.
It is, Jared. It's a great way. I mean, not only with the interviews and podcasts, webinars, et cetera. It's always a great opportunity to share my faith, but it's funny, when a person's invested, right? And what I mean by that is when they're paying the money to, they're invested in their own life and change, they're gonna be very open and vulnerable and transparent. And the power and the beauty of coaching is asking them some really powerful, thought-provoking questions and getting them to own their own conclusions and decisions, right? Which is so important, because people own what they create. But you're right. When people's hearts are that open, and when they're getting their results, when they're going out and dating their spouses again and loving life, when they're no longer checking emails on vacation or at the dinner table, where their income goes up by 25, 50% from a single high performance habit like block time, it's really cool how much their hearts open up to you, in this case, me, to your point, being able to share, hey, this is what God's done in my life and how he's worked and moved. So it's a blessing.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that you kind of said was it wasn't necessarily that you changed your 9-to-5 kind of job. You kind of changed the way that you handled the situations with that. You changed your mindset and what you were doing. I think, a lot of times people talk about when they say, I have to go to work versus I get to go to work. Just changing those couple of little things and not dreading it before you get there, which builds up anxiety and things like that.
And if you can't say that,
yeah,
then maybe you should think about where you're working.
No,
that's the main thing I caught was at the very beginning. He said, I took personal responsibility rather than pointing the finger at the company and blaming it on other people.
Absolutely.
He took personal responsibility. That's where it all has to start.
Yeah. And what resonated with me on it is I got to become a general manager of Sonic Drive-In whenever I was 20 years old. And I wanted to be the best manager. And I was. But I was also the best cook. I was also the best person at working the car hop stand, the best one at making shakes. And the reason I was the best because I did it all the time, and I thought nobody could do it better than me. So one day I called my buddy Hedge, who was my best friend in high school, and he was managing the Sonic right up the road, one county over from me. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm at the golf course today. I'm like, it's Saturday. You ain't at work? He's like, I already worked my 45 this week. And he goes, I'm off. I said, well, who's running your store? He goes, so-and-so, my first assistant manager. And I was like, crap. And I knew that, like, he always ran good numbers and all this other stuff. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I've been at work since 5 o'clock this morning. I was almost proud of it, And I never forget, it was 4th of July weekend. I was 20 years old. and I worked, I want to say it was like 92 hours that week, something
Wow.
like that. And I got home after that crazy week, and nobody wanted to work. And I was like, well, I don't care. I'll do it by myself, you know. And so I let them all have off work, and I worked the kitchen by myself, and I was crushing it and did everything I could to make it great. I went home and fell asleep, and then I kept having this deal where I would wake up, like my mind would wake up, and I could hear people talking around me, but I couldn't move. And studied it was called sleep paralysis, and it's basically where happens in high stress. You know, people get high stressed and things like that. A lot of times I would have it, you know, whenever I was on an airplane after playing music all night and then not getting very much sleep and then going to sleep, but knowing I was on a plane, I had to get off. You know, that happened after that, but. I was sitting there saying to him, I was like, dude, I said, how you do this? He goes, man, I got 7 assistant managers. He's like, how many you got? I was like, I just got 1, the morning manager, you know, and he's like, well, that's not enough. He said, you need more people. He's like, you got to delegate. And I was like, what's delegate? And then, and so first I learned to delegate. And what I did was I would delegate, but I would tell them all the stuff they were doing wrong and tell them the way I wanted it done. And then I read this book called The 1 Minute Manager. And it was all about, you know, delegation and how to teach people to do it the way you want them to do it, and then give them the authority to change it if they find a better way or if there's a way that fits them better. So not only to delegate, but to delegate with authority. And once I learned that, man, it just changed everything for me. And my sonic numbers went up. Everything got better. But then on top of that, I went from working, you know, 80 to 90 hours a week to back down to working 45 to 50 hours a week, you know, so.
Sweet. Vinny, that's so key. You just nailed something, man. You know, we hire really smart people. They don't need to be told how. Just give them the what. I mean, that was one of the biggest things that set me free. Like, hey, let's just sit down and have a talk. For a couple of rules of leadership, right? Number 1, people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Right.
So your team's got to know that you love them, that you care for them. You got to remember their kid's name, their spouse's name, you know, the sports games over the weekend. And then you just sit down, you agree on the what and the when. And you let them figure out the how.
Yeah.
That's been a big, huge change for me. And just steering really far clear of that micromanagement line, because nobody likes to be micromanaged.
Well, you also just hit on something.
And if they have a question with the how, that's what you're there for.
Right.
You're there as a leader to help remove blocks or, you know, blockers, impediments, issues, and to offer guidance and advice when asked for or when needed, you know?
Jerry, what was you saying?
You just hit on something else there too that's been a big one for me learning these days as well. Is like you brought up remembering them, their kids, their soccer games, those sort of things, and realizing that in leadership, that's a whole other part. And so often, I'm the guy that will just jump in. I want to get my hands dirty, but I forget that if I jump in and I'm getting my hands dirty all the time, I won't remember that soccer game. I won't remember your spouse's name. I won't remember those details. And that's part of my job as a leader or a manager as well, is going, let's remember this. Let's take time to sit and talk, because I often think part of my love language is definitely is working, helping. And so I'll jump in and help
Acts of service.
and not listen to what was being said. You know what I mean? And if you talk to any of my band members or any of the workers that we have on our job sites flipping, no one's ever going to say that I don't work my ass off. No one's ever going to say that I'm not the first one to jump in and help out. But I might not listen to anything that you said that day because I'm working with you. And realizing that I have to pull back on my workload in order to do my job correctly.
Well, and that was my thing, is that I was always like, I can do it better, I can do it faster, I'll get it done quicker, you know. And then, of course, when you jump in to do it, people are like, okay, well, go ahead, as long as I'm still hired, not, you know,
That you still pay me and you're going to do the job?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, it's a great lesson to learn, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that flip side, too, is that Jen and I have had a lot of discussions here lately about, you know, how big a company are you growing? What is the end goal? Or, you know, like we met with a guy not long ago that was talking about, he's like, well, you know, I realized that I didn't need to do the work. I could make more money doing less work. And as I was listening to him talk about it, I thought the position he was in sounded good, but it also bored the shit out of me.
Right.
I realized, like, well, I do enjoy being part of the build. I do enjoy working with my hands. So there's still a line there and a level of going, well, if I want to grow a giant company, yeah, at some point I'm probably not going to have my hands dirty anymore. So you have to kind of decide where do you want to be on that. And, and for like my wife's company, we talk about Chip and Joanna Gaines a lot, because you see a line and you see where they crossed over into something else in a great way. And once again, another couple that faith, Jesus is very high on their priority list. The family, very high on their priority list. And you see, if you watch that couple through the years, you see what started off was a GC that an interior designer probably couldn't make that great a living without that GC in her back pocket. And then you watch her grow past her GC, where anyone could have kind of come in and replaced Chip at any point in time. And then you see a progression more and more where Chip goes from being one of the main workers to, if you're really paying attention on like these episodes of The Castle, episodes of The Hotel, where Chip doesn't actually seem to know what's going on. It's very clear that he just walked in on film and they were like, all right, what's happening? He was like, okay, cool. And then he jumped into his role. And if you research during those times, what was actually going on is Joanna was running this giant company, and Chip was back home taking care of the chickens and the cows and hanging out with the kids.
Yeah.
Everything flips and everything changes. But I've respected them so much because they still knew where their line was and what family was and what their life was supposed to look like.
Yeah. And I think they, if I remember, memory serves me correct, they went through this hard time of like trying to figure out that transition and, how much time they were spending away from family and filming and all these things. Yeah.
But that's where I have that respect for Chip as a leader too.
Yeah.
Because Chip was leading Joanna and constantly going, baby, you the one took this on. You the one took this on. We don't need this.
Yeah.
We don't need this TV show. We don't need any more flips. We don't need this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think as a man, as a husband, as a father, that I'm continuing to thrive for right now, is to be able to go, hey, we can back off. It's up to you. I'll support you and I'll love you wherever you're going, but we don't have to work that hard.
Yeah, we don't have to make as much money. We don't, and I think that's one of the things I see with you, Jared, is that, a lot of times when, of course, people don't show up for work or things like that, you are the one that, receives some of that excess, physical labor that you go in and do. And I'll talk to you days like, dude, my back's hurting so bad today. Well, what'd you do? Well, I picked up this washing machine by myself and carried up a set of stairs. He goes, I was thankful that God's blessed me with all this strength that I can do that, because sometimes I forget. He goes, but then when I get in bed and I lay down that night, I forget that, man, I'm not 25
Maybe
years
you
old
ought
anymore.
not pick up washing machines.
Maybe you ought let somebody help you, not me.
You'd have been proud of me today. A guy was like, hey, help me move this stove. And I looked over at my son. I was like, hey, help me move that stove.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is way easier for you. And I was like, yeah, but I've done this for 40 years. It's your turn now.
Yeah, your back's young, buddy. You got plenty of vertebrae to slip. No, and I think, and Jeff, I want to make sure that, that we talk about your business in this too, because you went through this lull of like when the kind of market got hit this past year with, or the last 2 years really, where it went from these great percentages where, man, people were borrowing money left and right, and you were doing mortgages every single day and all this, and you said you were having these $1 million years, and then all of a sudden it's like, bam, screeching halt. But you kept trying to, everything's going to be great and money's just going to keep coming. Then all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, ain't nobody bought a house in a month,
Yeah, no,
So
it got to the point where it sounds bad, but you wake up knowing you were going to make money.
Yeah.
Like, it was that easy. And like you said, over the past 2 years, I learned that I'm not that special.
Yeah.
It's been.
That's not true. Fun. You are that special.
You're
buddy.
special.
I'm not so special to where I wake up and make money.
Yeah. Well, but you've had some cool things happen over the last. Are we allowed to talk about it yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had this deal that you were going to create with a guy, and then the kind of thing kind of went the different way. You ended up working for a different company. You had your own umbrella. Basically, you were underneath an umbrella, but you had your own company within the umbrella. And just over the last little bit, you've been given the opportunity now to come back with this guy that you helped build a business with before and take on the entire mortgage division of it. It's working with what I believe is a lot of real estate guys and girls. Yep. And, so with that being said, obviously you got more people around you. You got more people you got to lead. You got more things that are going on. Do you have a plan in place that's going to keep you from slipping into that money, like I'm gonna go make that money,
Yeah.
Money.
No, so
And also, you can share it with me when you make it. So, you too, Brian, and same with you, Jared. And
yeah, so
money.
what I have done with the upside to where we're headed financially, we're not there yet, but there is a massive upside to what's going on, and business is starting to pick up in general too within the mortgage field. But what I've done over the past 3 months is I've hired a financial advisor. So that I can not necessarily be told how to spend my money, but not be in the same position I was in when the money was coming in so easily. I want to make my money work for me rather than me work for the money. So I've put that in place. I couldn't really afford it, but I could not afford it either.
Right.
So that's the main thing I've done right now is I've put that in place. He's there to protect me from making the same mistake
stupid
twice.
mistakes or whatever. No, not saying stupid, just uneducated, things with your money.
Super uneducated.
Well, let me ask you this, just, this might affect both y'all and Brian. I'm not sure if it affects you or not, but wasn't there just a big shakeup in the real estate world where, like, for buyers and sellers or something was...
Yeah, but what's crazy about it is people really just aren't reading the fine print on it.
Hoopla.
It really didn't change anything. Like, it's weird because people are like, well, I no longer have to have an agent. You never had to have an agent. You could have always went in there willy-nilly and bought a house.
Always been negotiated.
It's always been a negotiation. You've always been able to negotiate what percentage you would. But what agents are going to do and what's not. At the end of the day, people go, well, my agent didn't do anything. Well, you need to get a new agent. You saw that with my wife.
Yeah.
Like, you need to get a new agent then. If your agent isn't working for those 3%, then they ain't doing a job. They ain't doing what they're supposed to. The reality is they're supposed to be there protecting you for the biggest investment you're going to make. And if you don't feel protected, get a new person because there are great people out there that are going to help you fight and get what you need to get.
Well, and also just help you when it comes to the negotiation of everything from closing costs to
Dude, it's
all
scary.
those things.
I've never appreciated my wife more with what she does until we started doing all these flips. And when you see all the things that could be wrong that someone hid, whew, man, you will definitely regret not having a good agent on your side when you purchase that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not final yet, for the record. Everybody's acting as if this is stamped, signed, delivered.
So what was it? It was basically that
you mark it down as
the
people
seller,
start moving
the
toward
seller,
this. It's going to hurt them in the end.
The
I mean, we're already watching. We've had, I think, 2 different people this last week that said they wanted to represent themselves buying this house from us. And we're like, I wouldn't advise that. I mean, we're selling it to you, and I'm still telling you I wouldn't advise that. There's just, you need correct representation.
Yeah. Well, it's
like going into court on your own, man. It's just, even if you're in the right, you're still going to get hosed on this deal.
Yeah. Well, you just don't know all the loopholes and all the different things. And rather than the real estate agents are going to know, hey, wait a second, we need to check this out. Here's a way you might be able to save money.
Absolutely. But even if you don't, you're going to get up against somebody, maybe not everybody, but multiple of you are going to go up against a really shady agent that knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want a builder that's shady or an agent that's shady or a flipper that's shady to get the better of you, you just put yourself in the position to do that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So Brian, with everything you're doing, how long have you started working this program, and what are maybe some of the client feedbacks that you've gotten to have that's really excited you or made you realize that, hey, God's got me pointing in this direction and it's where I've been going, but I feel like it's the right direction?
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. So I've been at this now for 5 years in May, and it's exceedingly fulfilling. I mean, it's just incredibly rewarding. When you got, for example, a corporate salesperson who's been in the industry for a couple decades, just talking about one of my clients, we'll just pretend his name's Joe for a second. So Joe's been a corporate sales guy at the top of his game for a long time. And then he and his wife are going through some serious difficulties. Both of her parents passed away, and they got 3 boys, and they're all active outside of the home and sports and everything. And this person, Joe, just starts making some really crap career decisions. And we ultimately ended up, connecting and coaching one-on-one together. And years later now, we haven't coached together one-on-one for at least 3 years now. And we still text and talk occasionally. And he's like, dude, Brian, those habits that you taught me that I implemented into my daily life, they're still working for me today. And I'm in a much, much, much better place. You know, I mean, Joe started dating his wife again, started being intentional about his faith and serving and contributing and at church and out in the community, started hanging out with his boys, you know, intentionally hanging out with them, spending time with them, doing stuff that they like, engaging with them. And he made some really, really smart career decisions and choices. He had to give himself permission to kind of let go from this one particular company that had a really bad toxic environment. And so that was a really big deal. And he's had I think two major jobs now in the last several years, 3+ years. And he's been happy in both places because he learned some important core values of what to look for. And that was one example. Another example, we'll call this woman's name Susie. And Susie's a family doctor, and she's been at it for a long, long time. And this Susie's got like a heart of gold. Everybody loves her, like huge, massive mama bear heart. But she, like so many other people with such big, great hearts, you know, she was just stretching herself way too thin. You know, had her own private practice, hundreds and hundreds of patients, was always on call, always checking the phone, always texting back and forth, no work-life balance at all. And so literally within the first month of us working together, she implemented a few key high-performance habits. One in particular is called block time. Basically just learning to block your schedule for certain dedicated time blocks, 1 hour minimum. I recommend at least 2 or 3 1-hour time blocks a day to get meaningful work done, right? And while we're on that topic, productivity is not about busy work. It's about getting your life's work done, meaningful work done. And so she just started blocking off her calendar. And then probably 3, 4, 5-month mark, she got really serious and really disciplined about her phone. And she sent out some blast communications via email and social media to reset her patient's expectations of when she was and wasn't going to be available. And she held to them. And I mean, I remember reading some of her Facebook posts like, oh my God, it's Saturday, it's dinner time. I haven't picked up my phone all day and it feels awesome. I've got so much joy, so much energy. So her and her husband, a pretty cool story. Divorce stats are pretty scary, of course, as we all know. They've got 6 special needs kids.
Wow.
And it's not their first relationship. So divorce percentage for one special needs kids is 80%.
Yeah.
You add 5 more for a total of 6. I mean, you're talking 90, 100%. Her and her husband are happy. They date. She just lost her ex-husband who died unexpectedly. So now she's having to walk her son, who's 21 years old, and her daughter, who's 18, through a very, very difficult situation. But because she's learned block time, she's there for them. She can literally dedicate however many hours she wants to, and she's got her schedule down now, and it's been down pat for the last 2 or 3 years now, to where on a certain date at a certain time, she's seeing patients. And then on that same day, for another 1 or 2 or 3 hours, she's doing stuff around the house, taking her dogs for a walk, and spending time with her kids.
Love it.
So, yeah, it's really cool, man. These habits are so practical.
Well, and it's great that, you know, it's based in the Bible. Have you ever had any clients that are not based in the Bible that you've been able to help with these, these tactics and these things that are biblical?
I have been. In fact, Susie, by her own admission, is not a believer.
Yeah.
You know, she believes in a high power. You know, she prays. She allows other people to pray for her. But we've known each other for a long time, and we love and respect each other.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know, the beauty of human relationships, right? People know that you care about them. You know, they're going to put themselves in a position to receive from you. And kudos and hats off to Susie. I mean, she's done the work. She really has been. But yeah,
let's.
I mean, these habits work for anybody.
I got a question
Go
on
ahead.
one of the habits. So if I were to pull up my calendar right now, Brian, you would see where I try, and the keyword is try, to block off time.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest downfall with that is I usually find a fire, which you would probably call an excuse, that keeps me outside of my blocked time.
Yep.
Yeah.
How does somebody combat that? Because if I feel like if people knew how to combat that, more people would actually block off time. I quit abiding by it because I never abide by it.
Can I ask you something, Jeff, with this question here? Is that that fire? Because I notice that fire is constant with me, and it's time sensitive typically.
Absolutely, because I'm dealing with mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll use today as an example. If I had, let's call it 12 to 2, which I know you said an hour, Brian. I did catch that. But let's just say I'd blocked off from 12 to 2 to be in money-making activities. In other words, I'm touching base with my referral partners or current pre-approvals or whatever that case. It's something that's keeping me in the money-making process. But I got a deal that's supposed to close tomorrow, and at 12:15, I get an email that could blow the whole thing up. So now all of a sudden I've got to put aside the money-making activity to focus on that fire that just lit, that immediate, what feels like immediate need.
Is it, so I got a couple questions here for you, Jeff, given that. Is it truly, really an immediate need? Like if you waited until 2:00, would you still be able to get what you needed to do done so that it could close successfully tomorrow?
In some, I would say high percentage, probably it would be acceptable. It's a fire lights. I feel like I have to immediately put it out type situation. That's not necessarily the case.
Okay. All right. No, that's fair. I appreciate the candor there. I mean, that's a tough one. A couple thoughts come to mind. Number one, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, right? And some of those cases are truly going to be fires that do need to be addressed. If that's the case, and if that's the case frequently, so as to avoid burnout, right? Because burnout is caused, going back to that adrenal fatigue, cortisol is more powerful than heroin. Yeah. It's more powerful than the hardest free drugs out there, right? So when your body gets addicted to that constant drip of cortisol, it is addicting. And the reason why I point that out, Jeff, is because it's so important to build in routines to unwind and de-stress every day. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there are certain jobs, certain situations where that is going to happen. And especially all the more for those kinds of jobs and situations where that fire drill does happen often, you've got to make sure that you're building in some sort of daily routines to de-stress and unwind. Now, the other part of, honestly, the first word that came to my heart is permission. And this is where a lot of people miss it. They just don't give themselves permission. And they violate their own agreements. They violate those own calendar blocks. Yeah. And it's easier said than done to fix. But at the end of the day, you do need to honor your commitment to yourself just like you would honor it to your customers.
I dig it.
And having that necessity, that inward drive, that inward, and I mean, just in listening to you for a few short moments here and listening to other past episodes, right? I think all three of you guys are driven. And that's awesome and that's good. The downside of that is that people who are driven and have huge hearts, they don't tend to think about themselves. Yeah. That self-care, that airline stewardess analogy, don your own oxygen mask before helping others. That's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But when you're intentional about it, knowing and understanding that if you'll make that a daily discipline, it's actually going to allow you more power and strength to then serve your audience and who you're really called to bless and serve in this world. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate that big time.
It's interesting. A lot of what you're saying has been very, very on my mind here lately. And I got a buddy that works in special forces. And he said something one day about working out. And I was like, dude, I haven't been able to make it to the gym at all. I was like, I don't even put going to lunch on my calendar at this point. And he said, well, it's part of my job. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you just got to stay in shape? And he goes, no, it's literally part of my job. He's like, my schedule, per the government, essentially, he said, I spend 2.5 hours of my day, my work day, learning. I spend 2.5 hours of my day actually doing my job, and 2.5 hours of my day in the gym. He's like, part of it is they're going, for me to do what I do, I have to work out 2 to 3 hours a day. I have to learn 2 or 3 hours a day, and I only do my actual job 2 or 3 hours a day. And I was thinking about that. I was like, that's what the government has decided. For him to be the best at those 2 to 3 hours a day, he has to be learning and he has to be strengthening himself. And it really started making me think about, like my life, like how many times I've said to Vinny or my wife, like, I'm positive that when I go to work and I work 4 to 6 hours, that I put in more work than most men do in 8 to 12 hours.
Yeah.
But yet I will continue to push myself to 8 to 12 to 16 some days. And then I wake up 5 days later going, why do I feel like crap? Why am I hating my life all of a sudden? Why am I hating my job? And it's incredible that,
what you're saying is so hits me right in the heart, because it seems like every day I get a call about the time that I'm going to the gym. And sometimes it's, from Jerry, but from when I get a call that somebody's wanting to do business. I say, hey, I'm walking into the gym right now. And a couple of times over the last, few weeks, I've had people say, oh, it must be nice to just be able to go to the gym whenever you want to.
Oh, dude.
And so
I'll punch you in the throat right now.
So I'm like, to the one guy, I said, lucky for me, part of my job is that I keep myself in shape, that I keep myself flexible enough to do the splits and to do the worm and to do what I do. And also I'm rehabbing an ankle injury and all these things. But I also used to weigh 500 pounds. And you have to understand that if I don't go to the gym, it's very easy for my body to get back to 500 pounds. It knows how to do it.
Lucky for you, you don't have to go to the gym to not be 500 pounds. Lucky for you, you didn't have ankle surgery. Lucky for you.
But when they said it, my first reaction is, man, am I slacking? Man, I'm here working. But then I'm like, if I don't get it in now, am I going to get it in? And I do feel like it's part of my job is to make sure that, hey, part of my thing is like, I'm Bigg Vinny. I'm supposed to be able to bench press. I'm supposed to be able to, work out. That's part of what I am. It's part of who I am as a person. So it really hits me hard when you say that, because I understand for you, man, you're also an entertainer, and you're still out there playing shows and doing stuff. You've been blessed to have a pretty, great natural physique. And I've always really thought about with you, what if you could pour that hour and a half into the gym every day, where you do an hour of working out and 30 minutes of cardio and your diet was on point. Like, you have the perfect body to shred as a bodybuilder, like the way your biceps are shaped, the way your wrists, your forearms, all that stuff. It's like, obviously that's not the most important thing to you, is not to be like walking around looking like Adonis. But I do see the natural frame you have with working out once or twice a week, or sometimes 2 or 3 weeks you don't even work out.
I'll give you one better that does actually affect me. That when we just performed in Kuwait, and there was a couple notes that I went to hit that was kind of iffy. Yeah. And the reality is that I still make a huge portion of my living vocally.
Yeah.
I do nothing for it.
Yep.
I do no training whatsoever. And the reality is, if I got in 30 minutes to an hour a day of just sitting there doing vocal exercises, what I would be able to do,
you'd be hitting those notes like it's nothing.
Yeah. And
I think for the longest time you didn't have to do that, because you were singing 2-3 shows every single week.
But even then, though, it's still like you're just not training. And so I think that that's another portion of my life that I'm looking at, of going, what are the God-given talents that God gave you, and what are you doing with them?
Yeah.
Are you using them half-assed? Because the reality is that my songwriting, my musical ability, my singing ability, they're just kind of natural. I'm not really doing anything to perform better or be better. Yeah. It's just what you see on stage. That was me not playing a show for the last 4 weeks and just walking up on stage and going, "Here's what I got."
Yeah.
You know, like,
When
that was
think,
it.
I think for us,
I
because
didn't try at all.
we've
My
kinda-
band went to rehearse, not me. I was
we've
on
talked
job
about
site.
we've talked about that too. Whenever we've talked about us showing up and doing some of the acoustic shows, people are like, "We didn't rehearse this. This is just us having fun," you know. And that's really the truth. I mean, it really has been that. And I think there's something endearing about that. But on the flip side, I know, like, dude, what would we be able to do if we really put together and practice and trained the show? You know, and we've seen some of that when we worked with the band, and we've had some tracks in place and some of that. But what could it be like if we really were pouring into those things? And the truth of the matter is I think we get into that grind of, you know, is it really something I'm pursuing as much anymore because I have other ways that I make money, and I never want it to feel like music is not great fun.
Dude, I'll tell you, one of the things that hit me while in Kuwait this last week was my band is they're phenomenal musicians. They play circles around me. They know more. They've forgotten more about music technically than I will ever know. And with that being said, I'm still the reason they're getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
And with that, they went in and rehearsed my set.
Yeah.
That they didn't need to rehearse at all. They went in and rehearsed while I was building a hidden door.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't even go to my own rehearsal.
And now he can't even find the door that he hid. It's like that jar of money I buried in my backyard. I'll come back and get it. No, I can't find it. Mason, you know, hey, where'd they hide all the mason jars? That's all I'm trying to say. No, it's a cool thing to think about that. But the good thing is that you are able to go in there and naturally just crush it, you know. But I do understand that when you're like, man,
you're not living up to your potential.
You're not, yeah.
And that block scheduling that you're talking about, it's definitely something that I've been working more and more and more on. So I've got a question about the block scheduling because I find it super interesting. I've been toying with this in my head. Is it possible that in certain careers, in certain times of your life that you realize that you're in, that block scheduling changes, and maybe it's not blocking off per day. Maybe it's blocking off per week or per month. Like when we're in these intense house flips, time is money, and we've got to get in and get out as quick as possible. Yeah. And so my wife and I have been discussing sometimes, like, obviously we still keep our date night intact. We still keep most evenings. We're still having dinner together. We're still spending time with the kids. But as far as looking at my music, writing books, writing songs, performing, the potential of a coffee shop, all these different ventures that we're looking at, we're starting to realize that maybe our block time is going, hey, January, February, March, and April that's house flipping season for us. We're not really taking these shows. We're not really doing and then maybe these particular months we're going to focus more on music and writing and those sort of things. Do you find that in block scheduling as well, instead of me trying to put all the interests that I have and all my businesses into one day?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great point. I love that aspect in the question, Jared. So I think the big thing here is just pray before your day begins. Because to your point, every day is going to be different potentially. Every week's going to be different. Every month's going to be different. But where people miss it is this. They wake up, first thing, they start scrolling. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it automatically puts their brain into a reactionary mode. So now they're reacting and firefighting all day long because they started their day that way. What I really encourage my clients to do is, hey, be intentional about your morning. If you can win your morning, you can win your day. And here's just a super simple, short, like 1 hour routine that works for a lot of people, right? Everyone's mileage is going to vary to some degree, but just, kind of hang with me here for some general high level principles. 20 minutes refreshing, rehydrate, do some yoga, do some stretching, get outside for a quick walk, 5 to 10 minutes with no eyeglasses on in the sunlight. Within the first 30 to 60 minutes of sunrise is wicked healthy. Sorry, I'm from the Northeast. It's this blank saying up here.
It's a wicked
for
piss
your
out.
Circadian rhythm that, helps with your energy, your sleep.
Yeah.
When you're asympathetic and sympathetic, AKA your body's brake and your body's gas turn on and off, right, at the proper times. All that's really good. So recharge. Second, reflect, right? For me, it's praying and worship and reading my Bible.
Yeah.
Every day. It's a non-negotiable. Okay. Third, 20-minute block, rehearse. Rehearse what a win looks like. This is where you break out your planner or a sticky or a journal, diary, right? Whatever it is. And you write down your 3 must-dos. And not only that, right? Those are the things you've got to do so that your day is a win. It's a W in the win column. But not only that, like, who are you going to be connecting with, and how do you want to show up for them? And there's some other, like, you know, potential morning primer motivation kind of mindset questions you can ask yourself. But Jared, I found that if you can decide at the beginning of the day, before that intense house flipping day starts, you know, the big 3 things that you've got to do for that day. And even going back to Jeff's question, right? If you know that it's a high probability of one of those firefighting 2-hour phone calls coming in where your business revenue generating activities are going to be interrupted, well, plan for that too. Yeah. Put that on your calendar too, right? So just, if you do that day in and day out, regardless of what happens in the different seasons and weeks and months of life, each day is going to be so much better. Why? Because you're being intentional. And when you start your day out with intentionality, that puts you in the driver's seat. Now you're being proactive versus this crap $1,000 device that causes us to be reactive. Mm-hmm. You know, so our goals and dreams, hey, let's be real. They're worth a whole heck of a lot more than $1,000. So let's be intentional about our day. I hope that helped.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit on something there to me. Like, I don't start off my day scrolling, but what I do start off my day is creating my list. Now, what you hit on that made me think about my list differently was, I don't forget what exactly you said, but it took my mind in this idea of, like, I'm letting the things that are going on in my day control me, rather me controlling the things that are going on in my day, and looking at, when I'm writing out that list, I should be writing out that list not of all the things that have to get done, but how would I be victorious over this day? What is going to make me joyful in this day when it's complete? And reality is, I love getting a bunch of stuff done, but I'm missing out on things in that would have meant a lot more to me. Yeah. To finish that off. And it made me think about, Randy Couture is a good buddy of ours, and Vinny and I had the pleasure of having him in teaching a course on martial arts and such, and he talked about the fact that when he would prepare for a match, that there was all these different scenarios of how that match could play out. But in every scenario, it ended with his hand in the air and that belt in his hand. It always ended with him being the champion of whatever was about to happen. And I was thinking about, you know, if you created your list for the day for that mindset of, I'm going to be the champion and the victor over this day, what does that look like for me to be the champion of this day? Yeah. To end this day and feel like I won. I did this. You know?
And one of the things that hit me was, have you personally, for your business, created that kind of journal or that morning planner that somebody could write down their 3 wins or their 3 non-negotiables or their, you know, things. I mean, I think, you know, that would be a pretty cool thing for your business to have it like, hey, let's map this out. You got this daily planner. It's got 365 pages. You buy a new one every single year that's going to help you, you know, write that stuff down, to put your notes in, to put your thoughts in. So that's one thing I think you should create that for your business. If you haven't already, you probably already have. But
I can tell you for sure, if you got an app doing that, I'll sign up right away, because I'm all about taking some notes on my phone about what I got next, next.
But then also the thing that hit me was when you were saying that is, I think so many times, especially in the music side that I work, I might make 100 phone calls a day and get told no every single time, you know, or I might, you know, and a lot of days, there's days that I put in the phone calls and the emails and all this stuff, and then I'm waiting on replies. And the days I feel good are the days that, you know, these things come to fruition. I'm like, okay, we got 3 shows we're going to go do now, or we got, you know, 3 stages as you in your world that we're going to get on. But a lot of times I get to the end of the day and I feel like I accomplished nothing if it didn't turn into something. And so one of the things that kind of, what you were just saying, it kind of made me think like, hey, if I write down these things, like what's going to make me victorious today isn't necessarily the outcome of all the work. It's the fact that I did put in the work. It's the fact that I did, put these things together. And I think for me, putting those things down so that I don't feel like a failure at the end of the day if it didn't end in money, or it didn't end in booking a show or this or that. So kind of just changing the perspective on what I consider a win versus just being monetarily based or success based. It could just be based on the fact that, hey, I put in the work today and I feel like a champion because I made the strides that could lead to the future things.
Yeah, and are you asking too much out of yourself in those things? Because, a lot of times I create this list and then other life gets in the way of those things. That and I started realizing as he was talking about that is that, hey, I don't have to accomplish everything on that list.
Yeah.
The reality is when you're looking at narrowing it down to 3 things, one of those 3 things is really just, did I move the needle forward?
Yeah.
Am I moving it forward? That because I don't
Absolutely.
I don't have to get you making all those calls may not have made something on paper happen today, but you're still moving that needle forward. You still put in the work.
Well, and I think too, just for me, I'm not a super organized person. I don't make lists, and I go and fly by the seat of my pants and all that, which is probably bad for the block schedule kind of thing. I need to get more intentional with my time and all that, which I think is something great you said, to be intentional with that time. I definitely need to work on that and probably get a little bit more organized with the fact that, like, hey, from 8 o'clock till whatever or whatever. Of course, I spend a lot of time sitting in the line at the kids' school, waiting to pick up the one kid and then go to the other school and pick up the other kid and then drop them off in the mornings and things like that. But I definitely think that's something and I try to stay off my phone, during that time. Like, obviously while I'm driving, I'm not on the phone, but I try to not make phone calls or do whatever. Cause when I'm sitting there waiting and I got 30 minutes with my kids while I'm waiting in that line, I try to just talk with them. And, my first thing I always say to Jagger every morning is like, hey bud, you ready for a good day? And sometimes he'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to talk to Christina today, which is this little girl he's got a crush on. And other times he's like, no, I really don't want to go to school. Can we just go back home? And I'm like, no, buddy, you got to go to school. And he's like, but why? He's like, I don't even like school. I was like, you love school. He goes, not today, I don't. I'm like, why? He goes, well, because it's raining. We're probably not going to go outside for recess. I'm like, okay, that's not a reason to not like school. But we have those conversations, and those conversations mean a lot to me. And then with Harley, she's only 3, but, she is getting to that, she turns 4 in June. But we are having some of those little fun conversations where she'll start telling me a story that I have no clue where she came up with it. Half the time it might be something she saw on TV or whatever, but just having that time with them, I try to be intentional with that time. The person I think that probably, gets the raw end of the deal, just because we have 2 younger kids, and I think I kind of get the raw end of the deal too, is with my wife, and then her time with me, because we got to work our businesses. So we work on completely different things. So we're not spending that time together. Then I'm taking the kids, or she's going and getting the kids, or one of us is taking it to Taekwondo, or the other one's working on something. And then by the end of the night, when we finally get to bed, either she might already be asleep by the time I get down there, because I put our baby girl in bed because she still will fight tooth and nail to not go to bed by herself. And then there's other times that we have, great conversation time and all that. But I do think that me and her have to become more intentional with, hey, we're blocking this time off for us. And, whether the kids are going to be, sitting down and watching a movie, or if they're going to be, playing in their room or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think, that's something I really do want to be more intentional with her, because she deserves just as much time or more time than anybody. So,
yeah. With what you said to also to back what he was talking about, you're talking about the devotional time, for yourself in the morning, that time outside, in the sunlight, that's been a big topic for us, and we're pretty good about putting the devotional time in there. Not great about getting outside in the sunlight early in the morning, and but that's come up so many times in my life here recently about how great that was. So thanks for bringing that up again. But while Vinny was talking about that, it occurred to me like it's really hard to get that devotional time in the morning when you've got little kids.
Yeah.
And I just realized that I forgot that me and Jen used to do this. Because we faced that same issue, and we started taking our kids together, because at first we thought, well, this is better that we're separating, you go do this and I'll go take the kids to school. But then we started to realize, well, if we took the kids to school together, we could kind of incorporate that devotional time and the things that God can do through your kids are pretty amazing. So we would go to school, and the entire way to school, we were teaching our children a different way to pray, which instead of, bowing your head and closing your eyes, it was a conversation that we would go, hey, we're going to invite Jesus into this conversation, and we're going to talk to him right now about what's going on with your day. What do you need in your day? What do we all need to be praying for each other's day? And so we would basically, that entire time going to school was one big open family prayer with Jesus. And then what that would bring, as soon as we dropped them off, that gave me and Jen also some time to reflect on what just got said, and a time to drive home and talk to each other. And that's the way we would have our devotional time in the mornings for many years with all those kids.
I think that's a great idea. I think where we're at now, we got our one son has to be at school by 7:15. And then the other daughter doesn't have to be at school till 9. So a lot of times she'll still be asleep.
Yeah.
And then my wife also has clients that she trains at 7 a.m., which is when I'm taking them to school. Yeah. But I do think as the kids are both in the same school, which will be another year of preschool with Harley after this year. But I think that's a great idea. I think that would be, cool. And the other night,
either way, you're just intentional about
actually
trying,
just yesterday, this was kind of cool because yesterday we come back from our vacation and we talked a lot on the way home. Of course, Jagger and Harley, they fell asleep on the way home, on the long car ride. But as we got back to the house, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and try and work out real quick. And I was like, you know what? I was like, babe, you're teaching that class at that gym you're coaching at. I'm just going to come to your class. And they have a spot for the kids there. And so I went and I took her class, which that's why my triceps are so sore today. But I did crush the class, and I did. There was a guy in the class that is a know-it-all, and he's kind of giving my wife a hard time. It's a little proud moment. And he comes from the CrossFit world. And so my wife has done CrossFit. She's done bodybuilding. She's done powerlifting. She's done taekwondo and all this. The class that they're in isn't a CrossFit class. It's like a functional training class. And so we went in there. The biggest weights they have are 50s. And so we're doing chest. And so I went over there and he was like, he goes, if you don't want the 50s, I'll take them. I'm like, no, I'll take them. He's like, well, you're probably going to regret.
He said that to you?
Said it to me. And he's in decent shape, but he's
not.
Yeah,
but still, did he take a look at you and be like, yeah, this guy
and so I was like,
the 50s.
I was like, yeah, I said, I'll take the 50s, man. And he goes, you're probably going to regret that a couple sets in. I'm like, okay.
No way.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right. So it was then my duty to smoke him at everything. So the workout, the first round, you had to do single arm chest press. So you had to do 10 on this side, 10 on this side. Then you had to do 10 overheads, and then 10 pullovers. And you had to repeat that for 5 rounds. 5 rounds? Yeah, 5 rounds. And it was 4. It was 3 rounds. You had 5 minutes to complete 3 rounds, and you did that 3 times. So it was 15 minutes of work. So I ended up doing like 6 rounds each time. And he's like, how many rounds you get? And I'm like, I think I got 6 on that one. He's like, dang. He goes, when are you going to change out those 50s? I'm like, if I had hundreds, I could do this. Which hundreds might have been a little much. I said, but what did get me was I was doing 45 pounds on the tricep overhead on this right here. I was like, dang it, I probably should have went with a 25 or 30 on this one. But I wasn't about to let it stop me. And then on the next round, we had to do, I can't remember what it was. It was like, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was the same kind of thing where it was 3 exercises and you had to repeat it for the 15 minutes. And then there was a deal at the end where we had to do cardio. So it was a ladder. So you had to go 14 calories on the skier, and then 14 push-ups, and then 14 dips. And then you had to do 12, 12, 12, all this. And you had to finish it within 5 minutes or whatever. And there wasn't no way I was going to let him beat me. So, you could do your 14 calories on the treadmill or the rower, but the skier's the hardest one. You know what I mean? So, because at least whenever you're pulling on it, it takes longer.
Skier's no joke. It
takes longer to get to 14 calories than it does on the rower or the treadmill. But I was like, I got to stay on the skier because I can't run right now and putting too much pressure on the row. But anyways, but my wife was so happy at the end of it. She goes, I'm so glad you came today. She's like, because you just made my whole day because, I had told him, that I bragged about you already, in the class about my husband was on Biggest Loser and he's very strong and all these other things. And at the end of it, he goes, dang, he goes, I can't believe you made it all the way through with those 50s. I'm like, yeah, I said, I'm a 400-pound bench presser, over 400 pounds. He's like, oh, Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, hang on. I still want. How big was this dude?
Not that big. In good shape though. I
Hey,
mean,
bigger than us?
probably your size. Probably your size. Maybe a little bigger.
I mean, because I can't fathom, like, what kind of idiot looks at Vinny. Now, listen, I know you got a little weight on you, but I mean,
Yeah.
your muscle structure is still very freaking obvious.
I
like,
mean,
your chest is huge.
I was
like, if you walked over to the 50s, there was no thought that I'd
Well,
have, like, Bob,
the
that guy's
the
gonna
funny
regret
thing, my
that
wife
crap.
had told me on her way, she's like, "Oh gosh, this one guy's going to be in the class today," and she's like, "He's a nice guy, but it's like he's a know-it-all. Like he's constantly telling me, like, well, in CrossFit we do it this way, or in such and such we do it this way." And I keep trying to tell him that I'm a 25-year personal
Well, my
trainer.
house rules.
Yeah, we've had that talk. And so, anyways, it was just a cool moment that I got to share with my wife yesterday.
That's
that,
awesome.
That my triceps
That's
are very
awesome,
sore
Vinny.
from today, but my chest's not sore at all. She asked me, she goes, "Is your chest sore today?" I'm like, "No, it ain't sore." I was like, 50-pound dumbbells? I'm like, "Come on, bro." I was like, 50-pound dumbbells for me is
Bring
like,
it on.
might as well be nothing, you know. I would say,
I mean,
could-
Crimson used to do that crap to me, but he's Crimson, so
He's 6'6".
me. So it's, but I can't imagine.
he's a professional
someone-
wrestler, you know. You know what's funny though is like, I know that I can take 50 pounds and completely decimate myself with it. But this whole thing was based on how many times can you do it. So speed was the name of the game. So I know that whenever I lift weights, if I slow down my reps for sets of 10 and I do a 2 or 3 second negative, yeah, I mean, a set of
Gonna be
10 is
slow.
going to burn.
Yeah.
But if I'm just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I mean, I was hitting full extensions, you know, but I'm like, dude, it puts no time under tension. I just knock out 10, set them down.
Man, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, and this is how I know I'm getting older, is that at my age at this point, it's all about some slow reps because
Yeah.
the less weight I got to push, the greater. Like the less weight I got on, the slower I'm going, I still get the same burn.
Well, that time under tension to get you. Which brings me back to you, Brian.
Hey, Vinny, real quick.
Yeah.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Thanks, man. I wanted to share. I love this. I love you guys got some powerful stories, and I've been really enjoying listening. Listening to you guys, I was like bursting at the seams. You know, I had this aha moment when I was flying out to San Diego 5 years ago to get trained and certified as a certified high performance coach by Brendan in the High Performance Institute. And it was basically at that point in time, I was 45 years old. I'm just turned 51 last Saturday. And it was my whole entire life up until this point has been defined by achievements and accomplishments and what I can do and you know, promotions, achievements. And then I had this moment with God literally as I was descending down into San Diego airport, and it was all about, you know what, Brian, your identity needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
And now it needs to be tied to who you are and me as my son and in your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I love listening to you guys because you guys just brought it back home to where it's really at, my friends. We're only as rich as the relationships we enjoy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good to have that list of 3. But one of my favorite morning motivation mindset questions is one person, and most days it's more than one, but at least who's one person today that I can reach out to and just let them know that I love them, that I appreciate them, somebody that I can surprise with a note or a gift or a thank you. And hey, let's be real, man. We're all busy. You know, I don't know a single person who's not busy. Robin, our girls are older, 21, 19, and 18. So she does some schooling, and she does lead a homeschool co-op at our church with a friend and neighbor down the street. But her schedule these days is a lot less hectic and intense as it was 5-10 years ago, right? When the girls were still in school and she was still really actively involved with them. But my days are always packed. But you just got to make that time to connect. And when you go to bed at night, when you look back down at that sheet of paper and you realize that you sent or received 3, 4, 5 different meaningful text messages. You know, I got an alarm on my phone. It goes off every day at 12 noon. Text Robin, I love her. And I do. Even when I'm in the office, we don't see each other for 9 to 13 hours at a time sometimes, right? We're texting each other. If I'm working from home, we're out in the kitchen at the same time making lunch. I'm pinching her on the butt, and she's doing likewise. Grossing out the girls. Mom, Dad, stop it. But I just wanted to share that.
That's
Relationships
awesome.
are where it's at, right?
No, that's awesome.
That's
Well,
great, man.
we kind of got to start wrapping this thing up for this episode, man. It's been such an honor to have you. Tell everybody out there where they can find you if they're in need of your services. If they're looking to say, hey, I need a high performance coach. I need somebody to help me with my daily routine. Where can they find you? And you don't have to give any prices or nothing like that on here, but just where can they find you and work with you?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So a couple different places. Number one, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Brian Gault on Facebook, Brian Gault 23 on Instagram. And I do have this book. It's called Divorce Your Phone and Calendar, 5 Keys to Reclaim Your Time and Energy. And it is a real game changer. I don't know about y'all, but I like short books with pictures and stories.
Yes.
It is that kind of a book. It's like super quick, easy read.
That's why Vinny and I wrote children's stories.
That's right. Read it, they constantly tell
3
me,
words,
like,
big picture.
I started doing this stuff and it works. And it's been a real game changer and it's changed my life in a very short time. So if you want to check out that book, it's free. You can go to tinyurl.com/HP-5 keys.
Yeah, if you can,
HP
if you don't mind sending that
5 keys.
Yeah, if you don't mind sending that link to the email that you got earlier, let's get that and make sure we get that in.
Vinny, make sure that you get that. We'll put that up on the screen when this podcast airs. But
we'll
also,
put the link
Vinny,
in there
send
too.
that out to us because I'd like to go ahead and get that.
Yeah.
That book as well.
Yeah, I want to make sure we get it, man, and we support you. And
happy to.
A lot of times when you go on podcasts, they're like, "Don't be trying to sell nothing on my podcast." But I'm like, dude, you got something great that's going to help people.
Absolutely.
I mean, just in this conversation tonight, I think all three of us have gained a lot from it.
You inspired us a lot. Definitely like to talk to you some more and possibly, privately about, moving forward with all this. And in fact, I'd like to go ahead and throw out, I don't remember if it was you or you that challenged us with the carnivore.
Yeah.
But so far we seem to be doing good on that. So I'm going to throw out another challenge.
Okay.
So one of the things that I loved was, and everybody keeps bringing it up, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that out. You guys in on making sure you get 10, 15 minutes in the morning out in the sunlight walking?
I'm in.
You in on the devotional every morning?
I mean, I got my Tim Tebow devotional right beside my bed.
All right, and the other thing that I heard him say that I really want to put in there is, can both of you guys commit to me that we're going to look over who can I send out a message to today?
Literally, it was my favorite thing that you said because I think so many times I'm quick to tell people when I see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then there's people that I haven't seen in a long time, and I got to thinking a while ago, I was like, man.
You realize how many great people we all have in our lives?
Who could I encourage? Who could I send a message to? Just say, hey, I just want you to know I appreciate you, and I see your hard work, and I just want you to know that in case you don't think anybody's watching you, I'm watching you, and I see you doing great things. I mean, something like that could really change somebody's day. Yeah.
I already have that reminder on my phone. I already do it.
That's awesome.
To your wife?
Awesome.
No, to just somebody. The
anybody
reminder
individual.
is, let's see, let me pull it up here. It goes off every day at 11 a.m., and it's titled Daily Encouragement.
Have you received
just
it?
to send somebody
Jared,
encouragement.
have you received one of those texts from him yet?
I don't know that I have. I was thinking about that. But the reality is that
But we
the
talk
three
all
of
the
us
time.
compliment each other so much that I wouldn't know if I was one of those.
Yeah,
because I received so many great
That's
messages
true.
from you guys. So I love that you have that reminder to tell your wife you love her. I tell my wife I love her a ton.
Y'all work together.
There's certain things that I'm really good at, but one of the things I struggle with, because we do work together a lot, that I think I'm going to put as a reminder on my own personal phone is speak nicely to your wife.
Yeah.
Because there's so many times that when you're working with your spouse, that you just start getting way too direct. I did it today, and I saw that look on her face, and I felt bad about it. And at the same time, I was like, I got crap to do, man. I don't have time to be going back and,
I feel bad, I really do, but you're going to have to go back to work.
But the reality is that it's really been something big on my heart here lately. It's like, how am I speaking to my wife? Because I say a lot of loving things to my wife. I do a lot. You guys know I do a lot of stuff to give to my wife and make sure she knows how much I care to her. But in the same breath, I can give her a gold necklace and 5 seconds later be like, no, we have to do it like this because this measures up like you didn't measure that correctly.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll be a dick, you know?
Just to add to this, something to not ever say to your wife because she's going to take it differently than the way you mean it. The other night, my wife had meant to pick up diapers on her way home and she forgot to pick up diapers. So about the time that they were getting ready to get in the bath, I was like, she was looking, she goes, where's the diapers? I'm like, well, you're supposed to pick some up. Did you not get some? She goes, no, I forgot. She goes, I'll go get some. And I was like, no, babe. I said, you just go ahead and take a bath with Harley, with our daughter. I said, and that way you can get that done and I'll go get the diapers. She's like, no. She goes, it was my job. I was supposed to do it. Now, in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, I know you feel guilty, but it's not a big deal. I'll go get the diapers. And she's like, no. She goes, I'll just go do it because your ankle and I don't want you to have to get out and all this other stuff. And I said, babe, use your brain.
Oh,
and I meant.
Wait a minute. Did you think that we wouldn't know not to say
no,
that?
No,
I assumed you slipped up when you said it.
It was a complete slip up. However, in my mind, I was like, use your brain was like, pause, think about it. We can knock out two birds with one stone.
Oh, I understand that you didn't.
Yeah, so it wasn't like I wasn't trying to down my wife or be like, but I said, babe, use your brain. I was like, let me go get them.
Did you know, like, though, in that moment? Right,
I did. I was. Hey, no, listen. I was like, "What's that?"
Did you
show?
say use your brain?
And in that moment, I knew that I effed up. And so anyway, so then she looks at me. She's like, "Do not talk down to me like that." And I was like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" And I tried to play stupid and prideful, and I was like, "Babe, I was just trying to help you out. I was just trying to let you go take a bath, and I'm gonna go handle the thing." I tried to completely flip it on her. Didn't work. She went and took a bath, and I went and got the diapers. And then later, after we got babies in bed, she goes, so I don't ever want you to tell me to use my brain like that again. And I said, I won't. I'm sorry.
Well, Vinny, I'm going to tell you something.
Hang on, I'm not talking.
Okay.
The very next day. Literally. Because it's something I say. I would say it to my brother. I would say it to you. Like, hey, use your brain. Think about it. I don't even remember what the scenario was. But I said, babe, use your brain. I'm like, I didn't mean it like that. Too late. So, guys, I'm just telling you this. Even if you mean it in the nicest way possible, there's no way for your wife to use your brain, except for you're calling her an idiot. And that's not the way I meant it at all. My wife's way smarter than me and way cooler than me and way better than me at pretty much everything, except for Uno. But don't say use your brain. What you can say is, hey, babe, let's pause and think about this for a second. Let's get the best scenario.
Well, I feel like I should give you some advice now.
I know you should.
When you're talking to your wife, use your brain.
Yeah. Noted. And I didn't even get offended by that. So, anyways, any final thoughts, Brian, before we jump off this thing?
Yeah, two things really, really quick. Actually, you know what? I actually want to respect everyone's time. Just one thing real quick.
No, two things. You're good. You're good. Go with both.
Okay, cool. Number one, evening routine. It always struck me as interesting how in the book of Genesis, in chapter 1, when God's creating the earth, he actually says, and the evening and the morning was the first day. I don't know why, but he always leads with the morning. And the understanding that God gave me on that, because I was specifically asking him about that, like, help me out here, God, just give me some understanding. And he said, Brian, for a lot of people, they're not winning their morning, and therefore they're not winning their day, but it's because they're not winning their evening. They're not winding down well. Yeah. So I've got this thing that really my clients love: 3-2-1 sleep, 3 hours before bed, no eating or drinking, 2 hours before bed, no working, and 1 hour before bed, no up close screens, because the white light keeps us awake and it fires up those neurons, right? And then cool the lights, dim the temperatures, and just do something relaxing, other than screens. Read, draw, play backgammon with your wife, play Uno with your kids, just do something relaxing. So have a good wind down routine, have a good evening routine. That way you can start your day out and hit the ground running. And the second thing that I wanted to share is while I was listening to y'all a while back, just talking about being on your A game and not being really well rehearsed or really well practiced, and what would happen if you know, for example, Jared, you gave the case, hey, what would happen if I were to do 30, 60-minute vocals every day? I was recently actually just reflecting on this. This is the first time I've ever said this in public. And I don't mean it braggadociously, but it is a fact. In the last 10 plus years in my current role, I've supported over $200 billion in sales. And the reason why I'm sharing this is this. One of the biggest reasons that led to my burnout was I stopped learning and I stopped growing. I thought I was all that. You know, Jeff, I'll never forget it. You mentioned it again tonight, but I remembered it because it was one of several past episodes that I listened to where you had shared you were just waking up every morning thinking, hey, I can just make money. It's easy. You know, and that is one of the biggest causes that led to my burnout, which is complacency. Whereas now I'm hungry and I'm humble. If my boss were to come up to me tomorrow and say, hey, Brian, I got this new influence course or new sales course or new communications course, you want to go? I'm like, yeah, sign me up. You know, I do. I'm there. Because it doesn't matter how much you've achieved. There's always more to grow and learn. So just stay humble, my friend. Stay humble.
Amen.
Yeah. I love it.
Man.
Well, y'all, this is our boy, Jared.
Well, I love the 3-2-1 except for the 3. I'm not a fan of that 3.
What?
Not eating 3 hours before bed.
Yeah.
The 2 and the 1, I'm down with those.
Yeah.
I don't like that 3.
For me, the 3, I drink water. I wake up in the middle of the night and drink water. Like I mean, but I only drink water. So, except for the occasional Celsius, but I try to.
I have super enjoyed this, man.
Yeah, me too.
Amen.
This
Yeah.
has been great,
Same.
man. You got a healing factor about you, and I told y'all he brings the light everywhere he goes. And you're the second guy. I know we were going to have you on our very first one, but our schedules didn't line up to have you on the first podcast after I came back from the Speak Off, and we had Akeem, you know, which you loved Akeem. Akeem was great. But man, it's just an honor to have you on here, share your presence with our people, and you know, we'll have some cool reels and stuff to send you. I know Jeff's working on those diligently because he's the only one that really knows how to make them look good. If he taught me how to use Opus Clip, I could probably be better.
I tell you what, this is probably the first podcast that I'll probably listen to 5 or 6 times because I need to retain everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just so good, and I'd love to have you back on here sometime. In fact, like when you started, a couple times you brought in what you do and brought in the Bible verses that back that up. I'd love to hear an entire podcast on that, just backing up all the different things from a spiritual perspective, because I think that most people know these things are in the Bible, but they don't know where.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's great.
That'd be dope for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with me is like so many times I quote scripture and I don't have a clue where it's at in the Bible. I just know that I've been told that, or I've read that, or I've heard that. You know, so I think that's pretty cool when you know the actual scripture. Like, hey, this is where you find it. You know?
And I've got a guy already that I'd really like to send your way, because he literally was just texting me. And he's like, man, I think I'm going to sell my company. It's a big company. He's like, I think I'm going to sell my company. I'm bored. I'm just this and that. And at the same time, he's like, I haven't been home in a full week and probably, I don't know, since December sometime. I'm like, well, dude, if your company's thriving that way, why? Why are you not home? Like,
Wow.
Well, Brian, thank you so much. Y'all, if you've been watching this, Brian Gault, you can check him out. Google him. But he's Brian Gault on Facebook, Gault, and then Brian Gault 23, Gault, by the way. And is it Brian?
Brian.
Brian Gault.
it should be on the screen right
on
now.
Instagram. Bam! It's on the screen. I don't know who does that, but whoever
Thank
does
you guys
that.
so much. Seriously, like this has been my honor. You guys rock. I was thinking about y'all and praying for you and about our time together earlier on today, and just really, really looking forward to connecting with y'all and meeting you. So thank you.
The honor is ours, brother.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Amen to that. Well, make sure y'all like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, share it with your friends, your mom, your uncle, your aunt, your pastor. You know, anybody that you think should hear this. As long as your pastor ain't gonna get mad if I said a cuss word or 6.
I don't care if he get mad.
I don't care if he gets mad,
I don't care if
actually.
he gets mad.
Anyways, I love y'all. Brian, you're the man. We're going to have you back on here again, dude. Thank you so much. And we'll get your links up on the screen so anybody that does need help can get that help they need.
Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
brother.
Can't
Thanks,
wait, guys.
Brian.
It's the Refine Life Podcast.
It was today.
Huh?
It was today.
It was refined.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Good job.
Tell the missus I said hey, and I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you. God
by
bless
the
y'all.
way,
Have a
I was
great
going to
night.
let you know, Jared is going to be coming up. I was supposed to be coming up to, he's going to be landing in either New Hampshire or Boston, but he's going to be playing in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. So I'm not sure how far that is from you. But
Awesome.
June
Couple
1st, he's
hours.
playing up there at a distillery. I usually play there every year. I'm booked, but Jared's going to be come up there to play, so make sure y'all connect on that. Jared.
Hey, and
You said
I don't know
June 1st?
when this episode gets released, but I can tell you this. For me, it was the 1 year anniversary because I noticed that we started posting about this podcast 1 year ago.
Yeah.
And you were the perfect guest to have on for today.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Because
Thank
you are
you.
everything
Thank you.
that we are trying
That's
to be
what it's
on here.
about.
Yes.
Yeah, Jared, seriously, I really appreciate that. And Vinny, you got my cell, so
Yeah.
definitely feel free to give it to
I'll do
Jared
a
and
group
Jeff.
text with
And
everybody so you all got it too.
Yeah.
Jared's got
Yeah.
some people he wants to connect you with, and then you never
it
know.
would be my honor.
Yeah.
And I'll shoot you the ebook and everything else. I am down in North Carolina at my niece's wedding June 1st, or else I absolutely would drive up.
Bro,
By the way, I
cancel.
gotta let you guys
Cancel.
know,
No, just kidding.
Battleground, It's a Good Life. Like, those tunes are jamming and kick butt. I love
Thank
those
you.
tunes. So thank you guys for everything you do.
Hey, much love, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right. Cheers, guys.
See
Take
you,
care.
Brian.
Bye.
Thank you.